1, 2, 1, 2. Check.
2, 1, 2. Check. Welcome in, Horned Frog fans, to the Frogs Today pregame show. We are here live at M&G Carter Stadium, just outside the Courtside Club, bringing you an hour's worth of content leading into the kickoff of TCU's first home game of the 2022 season. I am Jamie Plunkett. Alongside me today are former TCU and NFL alum Marshall Newhouse and Coach David Bowden. Guys, how are we feeling today?
I feel good. I appreciate you guys having me. This is fun. You feel electricity. I mean, first home opener, new regime, a lot of excitement in there.
Yeah, there certainly is. I couldn't agree more, Marshall. I think this carries over from camp. It's been electric. You can feel it. It's palpable, and certainly now we have the home opener. You can definitely feel it today. It's definitely been a long journey for this football team, dating back all the way to spring, fall camp. Obviously, they worked out all summer. A good quality road win at Colorado last week, 38-13 over the Buffaloes. Let's start there, because we saw some things, we learned some things about this team in week one. Marshall, I want to start with you. What was your biggest takeaway from that win over Colorado last week?
I think the biggest takeaway was just dealing with adversity. You don't expect your starter out of camp, which was a gray area. We weren't sure. They finally declared Chandler Morris the starter. You don't expect him to kind of get hobbled, but you're also, doesn't have a lot of starts under his belt. So you're like, how is he going to lead the offense? How is this new look deep? We're so used to a four-man front for literally 2 decades. How is this new front going to look? And then how are guys going to play? Is it going to be a disciplined group? Is it going to be a hard-playing group, a finishing group? So all those things, they're works in progress, but the first game out of the chute, you're hoping to see some hints of what there is to come.
Yeah. Coach, this was obviously Sonny Dykes' first game at the helm for TCU. You've been a first-time head coach somewhere before, too. What's going through your mind as a head coach leading a team out onto the field for the first time?
Well, I think, what I was – first I want to go back to what I saw from the team, and was no panic. And that aligns to who Sonny Dykes is, right? He's calm and collected. His staff is there, and it's permeated throughout the entire program. And it was really true last Friday night when you saw, obviously the quarterback going down like you just talked about, but also they were struggling. There was only 18 plays in the first half on offense and really couldn't get things going. But when in that locker room at halftime, there was no panic. Everyone, each position group huddled up, went over different assignments, communicated that to the players, and right off the bat they executed in the second half. So just impressive the way they did. They just handled themselves.
When you think, too, about how this team worked all the way through fall and got to this Colorado game, and not to mention faced a weather delay right out of the gate, first thing you do as a team for the season is have to go back into the locker room, eat a peanut butter jelly sandwich, and try and regroup and keep that mentality going. But I want to comment, too, on Colorado's student section, because they had 11,000 strong in their student section, and that, I think, maybe caused some problems for TCU in the first half a little bit. Don't you guys think?
The noise, I was watching it on TV, and the noise, you couldn't feel the permeation, but all the reports I got in person was that they were causing a little bit of trouble, and especially on offense, communication is such a big deal with so many new people, new moving pieces. That's an adjustment period for sure. That is not a natural thing. In practice, you might have speakers, you might have people yelling things to simulate it, but there's nothing like a real away hostile crowd. So that's our first taste of it. It's going to get way worse than all these Big 12 games. So it's a good start, something to get accustomed to.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I look at there was over 11,000 that scanned into the game. And when you take a look, it was, they were yelling some not so nice things at the beginning of the game. And that student section was strong. It wasn't, yeah, right? Sure. And so that's what you do. It's just all about what you do on the field. And as soon as you take that away on the field, then you can mitigate that, the crowd noise. And TCU certainly did that in the second half.
And so now you have week one. It's a win. You learn some things about your team. Now, what's the focus been for TCU now in week two? What do you think they have areas to improve on?
Well, you're building towards something greater. You're trying to compete for the Big 12 title, and Tarleton's just the next victim on the list, but you can't take a team like this lightly. This can't be the situation where you kind of start to skirt, you start to coast a little bit. This is when your seniors step up and like, hey, we want to be a team that takes care of our business. We win the games we're supposed to win. We do what we're supposed to do, and you get to the next week. But there's a lot of talent on the squad. We've got a lot of transfers into Tarleton. 1AA teams playing FCS teams, it's not a cakewalk anymore. Some things are a little mismatched as far as talent, but these teams are regularly beating Division I teams now. It's just not something you can take lightly anymore.
Yeah, I think the other thing, I think when you look at frontline talent, right, they can match up with anybody. Where these things become tough for FCS opponents is just can they withstand the grind of 4 quarters, right? Can they make it all the way through? Because TCU can consistently throw out fresh bodies that are just as talented as as their starters, right? Some of their starters. For Tarleton, there's a little more drop off in that talent, so some of those stars have to go a little bit longer, right? A little longer stretch in the game. So that'll be something to watch of the game. Is can they handle it? Do they start to wear down a little bit as the game goes on?
Not to mention too for TCU, their game planning for this game a little bit different simply because Chandler Morris isn't going to be the starting quarterback.
Sure.
You've got Max Duggan, who's an experienced guy, an incredible runner, and there are some questions about his passing game, but at the same time, we've seen him make some really good throws over the course of his career. For you guys, what do you think the ultimate goal should be for TCU today as far as finding that balance between putting points up on the board and getting the first team on offense and defense a good run, but also this is an opportunity to get some more game time experience?
Absolutely. I think this is just establishing an identity. We don't know what we are yet. I mean, they've gone through off season. Guys have been grinding, building up their bodies, getting ready. But we just filled out the depth chart a couple weeks ago. Yeah. We just had our first in an away game. But you're trying to figure out who you're going to be because it shines through in the fourth quarter of games. That shines through when you're trying to win championships. So that's the stuff we're trying to figure out. It is a luxury to have a guy like Sam Duggan to be able to plug in when your starter gets hurt. And yes, he's got some shortcomings in his game, but he's a year older, a year wiser. He's shown that he can win in the Big 12. He's got double-digit wins, double-digit starts. He is fully capable. And like I said, that is just an absolute luxury that most teams in the country just don't have.
Yeah, I think Marshall's spot on. You know a little bit about this, Marshall. I always quote Bill Belichick stuff, and so you've been around, but he just says football players play football. So I can't be worried at this point about who you're going to get in, who you're not. I mean, right now, this is almost an extension of camp for them. They've got an FCS opponent that's formidable, no doubt about it, but then they roll into a bye week next week. Really, they've got a real football, some meaningful football, because all of a sudden you're on the road at SMU. You've got Oklahoma coming into so you got to make sure you take care of that stuff with your players right now, with your stars and your guys, because if you've got getting too worried about clearing the bench and getting guys out there, you got to be prepared for not this game, but for the about to hit.
I would also argue to cut in coordinators as well. Coach Riley, he's figuring out his own rhythms, his own cadence as far as play calling. That is something that just can't be overlooked, especially going into some high-scoring conference as the Big 12. I mean, we're going to have multiple ranked teams. Even after today's loss from Texas, they are obviously way better than we've seen them in the last few years. So these are the coordinators also figuring out, all right, what do I have in my players, and also what do I have in my own game planning arsenal, and figuring out what we have moving forward. Like you said, we'll have an off week next week to retool and recalibrate, but these are actual such heavy value reps for everybody.
So, guys, let's look at this too from a conference perspective, Mark, because you said that the goal obviously is to make a run for the Big 12 championship. Around the league today, Alabama obviously just a 1-point win over Texas down in Austin. Like you mentioned, very impressed by Texas, especially on the defensive side of the ball today. They contained Bryce Young well. They shut down those Alabama receivers. But most importantly, they closed out on the running game. Except for one big 80-ish yard run, I think Alabama only had like 40 more.
Who does that remind you of, shutting down the run? Who does that remind you of? Yeah.
Absolutely. So Alabama comes away with the win, though, 20-19. Another former Big 12 rivalry, too. Kansas State, absolutely integrates Missouri this afternoon, 40-12. Deuce Vaughn, Adrian Martinez. Seems like that offense might have something going on, too. But it feels like this conference is kind of wide open.
This is feeling like a strong conference, but a conference that we're just, the top 7 teams. It's going to be who's hitting their stride, who's capitalizing on their talent development, who's capitalizing on opportunities when these games are going to be close. These are going to be all high-scoring, close games. Well, maybe not even high-scoring, but close games for sure, with a lot of talent in this conference now.
We think about it too, right? We've got games that are on the scoreboard right now. Iowa State's beating Iowa 10-7 in the third quarter. Texas Tech leads Houston 17-10 with 10 minutes left in that game to go. And West Virginia's got a 1-touchdown lead, 14-7. Just at the start of the second quarter, and that one. Kansas is a team, too.
Lance Leipold's got some things going on over there in Kansas.
Yeah, there's no question. They've always played he's always played a tough brand of football, right? A hard nose. It's kind of
what the Big 12 is actually becoming, right? The Big 12 for so long was so wide open, quote unquote spread, whatever that means. But really, we talked to Dave Aranda during media days about this.
Yeah.
A lot of 12 personnel, 11 personnel at the very least, seeing a bunch of tight ends on the field that made this thing tough. But I think what makes the Big 12 so wide open is the fact that you don't have those traditional, returners at quarterback, right? We can point to three guys and say, okay, they're gonna run the show.
Sure.
So that to me really lends itself to being wide open, is because of the question marks at quarterback throughout the Big 12.
Mm-hmm. Let's circle back around, though, to TCU, because that's what we're here for. This is the Frogs Today pregame show, live on frogstoday.com and on our Frogs Today YouTube channel. I am Jamie Plunkett. This is Marshall House, alongside us, Coach David Bowden as well. Guys, it is a new era for TCU football. New head coach for the first time in over 2 decades. What does that mean for a program like TCU to have a new vibe, a new energy, something new that's coming in after so much consistency and tradition over 2 decades?
I think it means the world. I mean, it's a validation of the program as a whole, irregardless of the guy who leads the program. Coach Patterson was integral into building this to what it was, but this is a continuation. Our hiring process was of high value. We were a destination for some of the best talent in the country, and that's just, again, validation of what this program has become, and what I think and I hope all fans assume it will continue to be. And this is just another step in that tradition, that lore. And again, at the end of the day, the people in this stadium, the people that follow the Frogs, winning is our that's what we're accustomed to. And so at the end of the day, winning games is what it's about.
Yeah, I think when you look at the sort of new regime, so to speak, the one thing that stood out, and we talked a lot about this throughout camp, is how they take care of their players here, right? And when you do that, right, the way they take care and the detail that goes into taking care of these guys, I think buy-in happens a lot faster. And I think we've seen that. Anytime you get a new coaching staff, it's always tough, and you're always kind of trying to fight for that buy-in from players. But the first thing you can do is take care of your players, right? And they're going to buy in a lot quicker. And certainly they've done that from Coach Dykes all the way down, but from their strength program, nutrition, taking care of guys, whether it be something like ice baths, massages, meditation. I mean, really a holistic experience for these guys. And I think that's why we've seen them buy in so quickly.
And I was here with the last staff, but talking to some of the new players, it's not often that you hear their first name out of their mouth as far as the new coaching hire is the strength coach. But this guy's made an incredible impact in his short time here. He's literally building the foundation of his players, keeping their health at the forefront. These guys are taking care of their bodies. It's just such an active thing that I don't remember hearing before.
Yeah.
And so at the very least, we're going to have guys who feel like their best interests are being taken care of. They're being put in the best position to go out in the field and perform.
Absolutely. All right, folks, we are going to take a quick break. We've got a special guest joining us on set when we return. This is the Frogs Today pregame show. Here we have Coach David Roditi, the TCU men's tennis coach, going to join us on set right after these messages. All right, we are back, Frogs. Today, pregame show here at Amon G. Carter Stadium. We are just outside of the Courtside Club. Gentlemen, let's talk about some other scores from around the country. We have some interesting news here as Appalachian State is currently leading Texas A&M 17-14 with a minute and a half left in the game, and App State has the ball on the Texas A&M 12. These are the kinds of upsets that make college football great, aren't they?
Sure, and I'm sure there's no feelings of schadenfreude here in the stadium with A&M maybe about to get beat.
Yeah, and the other thing it's a good thing to remind the current players that when App State was an FCS team, they walked into a certain big house up in Michigan and beat them as well. And so I think it's pretty timely to take a look at that A&M score and remind them of that back then, that stuff can happen if you're not ready to play.
I mean, you don't even have to go that far back. Last week, App State almost knocked off North Carolina. They're 2-point conversion away from taking that thing to overtime. Another score today that actually took place, Marshall knocking off Notre Dame 26-21.
Top 10 goes down.
Top 10 goes down. That's 2 weeks in a row now. We've seen a team in the top 10 lose.
You got to show up. I mean, that's, again, another new regime, a new head coach, I think Tommy Reese was there as the OC, but new coordinators, new system. This stuff is not a given. You've got to really show up. You've got to take care of things you can take care of. I mean, it's just there's no guarantees in college football.
I mean, that's the message for this team right behind us today too, right? With Tarleton State coming in, they've got some talent, especially on the offensive side of the ball, and Kentucky transfer quarterback Bo Allen. He's a big kid. He's a big arm. David, I know you've done a lot of film study on him this week. What have you seen from this guy?
Yeah, he's an absolutely legitimate quarterback. Big size, big arm, but he's not a statue back there, right? He's a guy that can move around, get himself out of some jams. He doesn't, when he throws the football, it's not a full body motion, so he can have guys all over him and still make plays with his arm down the field. And then, in terms of guys to throw to, you look in the outside and, got tall receivers that can get it. So anytime you have that, and the tough part is, as we all know here, is that, you can have the perfect call on and the perfect defense, you can execute, but if you got guys who can just go and throw jump balls, sometimes, you can get yourself some points on the board. So you got to keep an eye on that and make sure you're taking care of business on the offensive end as well.
Absolutely. Jaden Smith is 6'6" on the roster. He had 3 receiving touchdowns for the Texans last week. Across from him, 6'4", Gabe Douglas had 126 receiving yards last week for the Texans. It's a pretty potent offensive threat. And when you look at the way that TCU's defense, though, played last week against Colorado, it seems at least like they've got the secondary to maybe compete and lock that down a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just in general, the gaps between 1AA or FCS to FBS has closed significantly in the last decade. So you got guys, especially at the skill positions, with plenty of talent. Guys are going to get looks in the next level who either transferred to or from other big programs. I mean, it's just with the transfer portal, you just have no idea. Mm-hmm. You've got to really take everyone at their best. And then, last week in Colorado, we have the defensive back talent. We've got a veteran group, some guys that came in from different programs. But we have a group that I believe in a lot this year. But it's going to be a whole different ball game with the style of defense that we're playing now. We talk about this 3-3-5 defense. It's got 3 down linemen who can shift, be very versatile. But a lot of the time, we're dropping more defensive backs in the coverage, and with for lack of a better term, a bend but don't break mentality. And so that means you might have to cover a little longer. There might be a little bit less pass rush that we're accustomed to here with 5 techniques blazing off the edge on defense. So it's just a different set of rules. And so you got guys like THT, who's supremely talented. His role might change a little bit. We see him top tier corner in the Big 12, but his role might have to change, which is how we want to play defense.
Yeah, with that, Marshall, I want to talk to you a little bit about, as an offensive lineman, we talk a little bit about those simulated pressures, right? Because in that 3-man front, it looks like guys are blitzing, but really at the end of the day, it could still only be a 4-man rush or, and bringing guys over the place. How much does that miss with an offensive line's communication from making sure they get the protection right and those things? And also saw some delayed blitzes, out of Tarleton as well. And what does that do for an offensive lineman in terms of protection?
It's just another split second of having to think pre-snap. Your center or whoever, either quarterback or center who's setting protection, is having to figure out, all right, who do we think are most likely to come? I'm watching rotation on the secondary from safeties. Who is most likely to come from study throughout the week and from tendencies in the game? And usually when guys are on the same page, you have success. But the defenses like this with the simulated pressures, that allows defenses to kind of bring a little bit more pressure that you don't necessarily account for all the time. It might be late, but it's still pressure. And quarterbacks and the line have to really be in tune because they look to confuse you. They look to make things muddy, and that's when you get protection breaks between the offensive line and the running backs. Guys who are looking around, they look a little befuddled, and that's when you get hits, you get sacks, you get fumbles. So stuff like that is meant to confuse, for sure.
Yeah, I think Jamie, you fully understand. As we were watching that film, the thing is, I think that lends itself that well for Tarleton, right? It helps Tarleton out because they don't have to necessarily just line up and hunker down and go body for body. If you do that with an FCS team, you can't always sustain that for a full game. But if you can constant movement and bring pressure from all over the place, you can give yourself a chance, right? I mean, I think that's where it comes in.
What is one of the cures to that typically is running the football consistently, taking chunks out of them. Even if it's 3 and 4 yard gains, you do that over consistent 4 quarters. You get guys out of these crazy schemes. You get them playing more vanilla. You're having to match man to man, and we talked about Duggan earlier. That is his strength. Mm-hmm. We are going to have an offensive line that we're going to have to see start to take over games like this. These are the games that you want to control, so they can't do as much. It honestly makes our job easier. The better we play from the beginning, especially in the run game, the easier our job is throughout the game. We're not getting in 3rd and longs. We're not letting their coach, whether you're no huddle or not, have time to spin the Rolodex of his pressures. They're having to play us straight up, and that makes your job easier.
Yeah, no question. You think you can mitigate some of that too with some tempo, right? But again, in order to get in tempo, you've got to get in some kind of rhythm offensively. I mean, you don't want to hurry up and punt, right? So you've got to get some, establish some things in the run game.
They call that staying on time.
That's right.
It's about first down. You're getting it's less about yards and more about execution. You're staying on time. You're staying ahead of schedule to get first downs, convert first downs. You're getting in the rhythm, and that doesn't allow defenses to really get set on what you're going to do. You're not behind the chains. You don't feel pressure to do anything specific that you don't want to do.
Absolutely.
All right, let's go back, folks. We have a little bit of an announcement here because the game in College Station is officially over now, and Appalachian State did come out on top, 17-14 over Texas A&M. I'm sure their fan base is going to handle that totally fine.
Completely rational.
Yeah,
it'll be a completely rational bunch.
Aggies were top 10, yes?
Aggies were number 6 in the country, and they've just lost Appalachian State at home. Some Big 12 scores from around the country. Iowa State still leads Iowa 10-7 with less than 3 minutes to go in that game. Houston has tied it up with Texas Tech out in Lubbock at 17. There's about 4 minutes left in that game as well. Kansas has just scored a touchdown to come back to within a touchdown of West Virginia, 21-14 in the second quarter of that game. And Kent State and Oklahoma State have just kicked off. We've seen a couple upsets today. I don't think Kent State's got what it takes to beat Oklahoma, but who knows?
Long story short, you better show up. It's just this. It's tried and true. It happens every year, but those teams, A&M should not be losing to App State. App State's very good. The reason they got promoted and elevated to FBS, they should not be losing that game at Kyle Field. Yeah. But you got to show up. All the 5 stars that Jimbo's got. I mean, that doesn't matter. This game on the field, in between the lines, matters. App State is not scared of anybody. We're talking off air or we're on air about the upsets they've had. They're a team that is built for this. They don't care. They're coming into your house. They're stealing your candy, and they just don't care. So, again, a word to our guys. I mean, you got to show up. These are the games you got to win.
Yeah, I think too, guys. I think the fact that football has gone 12 months out of the year, right, for all these programs. So there's no lag behind where you wonder, back in the day, right, who's gone away, who went home for a few weeks in the summer and trying to drag guys in. I mean, this is a year-round process. So these guys they're all showing up prepared, right? I mean, so that's not an issue anymore. I mean, every program they're going to be prepared, and then the ball bounces a few different ways, and all of a sudden you got upsets like you do today.
I would argue as well with the transfer portal. Guys who were typically 3rd or 4th on a depth chart and a Power 12, Power 5 school, they're now going to get a start in a program that they're choosing. Where they're obviously closing the windows on that. They're trying to tighten it up, but the last 2 years has really been a free-for-all. So you've got programs with guys who started last year, played significant minutes at all the positions. You just don't know who you're coming up against. The branding of the school doesn't matter. We're talking about the actual talent on the field, and it's more spread out and even than it's ever been.
Yeah, we're going to see that here today, right, with an SEC quarterback that transferred into Tarleton. Mm-hmm. So we're going to get a live look at that. And I think also, if we kind of keep peeling back the onion and look for reasons why this has happened more and more, if you go back to the COVID year a couple of years ago, and everyone getting an extra year of eligibility, and so now you've got guys on programs for 6 years, and so there's a lot in play here, but it all leads to the fact that it can happen to any of us, and we've been ready today. Yep.
Frogs Today pregame show here live at Amon G. Carter Stadium, just outside of the Courtside Club. I am Jamie Plunkett. This is Marshall Newhouse. That is Coach David Bowden. Guys, I want to talk a little bit about the trenches while we have a minute, while we're waiting for our guests to show up. The offensive line looks like it has really been solidified, at least in game one, around Steve Avila at left guard and Annalee at center. Yeah. Marshall, what can you tell me just from your experience being an offensive lineman over the years, professional for so long, and now watching this TCU team like you have been? What can you say about the offensive performance in week one, and what do you hope to see from them in week two today?
Well, obviously, I'm always excited about offensive line play. We've had some guys hold over from the last program and some transfers in. Rob being one of them, came in from SMU as your signal caller. But it looks to be a tight-knit group. It looks to be a big group. I've highlighted here in my sheet the size that we have. That was not always the case at TCU. Yeah. And that size allows you to push people around with the right attitude. And so you can look at these guys like these are the people that are going to establish our attitude, establish our identity on offense as the game goes on. Everyone's got energy in the first quarter from offensive, defensive standpoint. Who wants to bring it in the fourth down? Who wants to bring it on 3rd and 1 with the game on the line? Whose group is operating, gelling together the best to execute when these games are close and when these games matter more? And so I look for these guys to take another step. Vila being the senior leader, I look for him to be taking control, showing these guys how it's done. And these are the guys that are going to help you win, regardless of who's calling plays behind or throwing the rock behind the line. These guys will take games over, and they'll win or lose you the Big 12.
And talk about senior leadership on the offensive side of the ball. Coach, on the defensive side, on the D-line, there's an 18-year-old grown man who has already started to tear things up there.
Yeah, and he's 18 by a few days, right? So yeah. He showed up in Colorado at 17 years old. Dominic Williams did, and a guy that the offensive line that you just talked about had praised all, right? So he earned their respect right off and that's hard to do for any true freshman, especially when you're 17 years old, for all of them to come out, this guy's the real deal. And he proved that on Friday night. I mean, it was a huge 4th down stop to set the tone on that first drive. That snowball effect that happened started with him. He split a double team, made the play in the backfield, linebacker scraped over the top and cleaned it up. That's a huge moment for a 17-year-old kid on that stage for game one. And so I think now, feels like and knows that he belongs, right? I mean, because you got to imagine, he gets named the starter. There's still got to be a little bit of doubt in your mind. You just a minute ago, you were just going to your prom, right? And fly to go to your prom and all that. And now here he is, against Colorado and a ruckus crowd. So it was happy for him because he seems like a great young man. But that defensive line has done a great job in game one. And I really think they've been really a bright spot throughout camp leading up to that point.
Marshall, you know this intimately well, right? Like those guys, everybody in the trenches on both sides of the ball, you guys get to know each other really, really well throughout spring and fall and even throughout the rest of the season.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a tight-knit group on offense and defense, but then single day we're doing pass rush against each other, run pod against each other, and so there's a competitive spirit too. But after camp's done, you're like, all right, we get to go hit someone else now. We're tired of hitting each other. Let's go someone else. And that's the stuff that we look forward to. And we've got a defensive front group that I think has that tenacity about them. Again, they're being asked to do different things than we're used to in the past. The 3 down front, at times, your job is to contain the quarterback. It's not to get there as fast as possible. It is control where he has to set up in the pocket and then push him where we want him to go. In the run game, sometimes it's 2-gap. A 2-gap meaning you're taking on 2 blockers at the same time, occupying space so that the D winners of the world can operate in space and go make tackles. Those are different roles than what we're used to in the past. And so as a fan, when you're look at our defensive line as maybe it's not as flashy, maybe it's not as, you're splitting a double team and making a sack, but he's doing just as important work by taking on 2 blockers and occupying space, moving the quarterback where if Bo Allen, I imagine, has a lot of athleticism. We know this. If he's right-handed or left-handed, do we want to flush him right? Do we want to make sure we flush him left? Do we want to make sure he can't step up, or sprint out, do whatever? That comes from the defensive front in this new scheme.
Yeah, and in addition to just being big guys that can 2-gap in the stack defense, even in addition to that, now you have that as an option, and also a
movement, right? So you got guys that are moving constantly, so you have to be extremely athletic. These guys are. So it's a special bunch. I think, it's a group that can hold it down in two gap, just kind of be a base defense, or you can move all the time where they're bringing all these different pressures, these exotic pressures that they have in the arsenal. And so it's definitely something to keep an eye on. I agree. They made their mark in game one, and today we kind of look to see if they're going to take that next step.
Guys, let's take another quick break here on the Frogs Today pregame show. Again, Frogs Today live on frogstoday.com and the Frogs Today YouTube channel. I am Jamie Plunkett. This is Marshall Newhouse. That is Coach David Bowden. We will take a quick break, and then we will be right back. Welcome back to the Frogs Today pregame show here at Amon G. Carter, just outside the Courtside Club. I am Jim Plunkett, joined, as always, by Coach David Bowden and Marshall Newhouse, and we have a great special guest with us here on the show now. TCU's Athletic Director of Intercollegiate Athletics, Jeremiah Donati. Jeremiah, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be back. There's something about a night game at Amon G. Carter Stadium that's just a little magic in the air.
It's been over 250 days since TCU hosted a home football game. It's the Sonny Dykes era. Tell me, what are you feeling today? How are you doing? What are the vibes for Jeremiah Donati today?
Well, happy we're 1-0, right? Had a great experience down in Colorado, and probably other than a couple injuries, probably got everything we wanted out of the game. We got tested early. I know that we didn't get up where we wanted to, but I think having some adversity was probably a good thing for the group. We show a lot of maturity. So I think we're going to execute better today, and I think guys are just fired up to be here at home playing in front of their family.
Jeremiah, as the athletic director, we saw a ton of great energy around here, a great vibe. From your desk as the athletic director, what defines success for year one in your mind?
Getting back to the postseason, to be honest, and going from there, because even though we qualified for a bowl game in 2020 and obviously couldn't play Arkansas for COVID reasons, it's been 3 years and a lot's happened with the pandemic. Fans, if the Colorado game told you anything, our fans love to travel. They travel well. Getting back into the postseason, getting back, Marshall knows this, we go to bowl games every year. That's the standard. So getting back to the postseason is goal number one.
Awesome. And when you look at sort of a 5-year thing, when you look over the 5 years, how do you define that well over a 5-year deal?
Well, I think the wins will come when you have a solid foundation. So some of the things I think that Sonny sees an opportunity for, and some of the things, frankly, that were really attractive about him and his staff are rebuilding the culture, getting better in the state of Texas recruiting, especially here in DFW. I think there's a lot of things, the team chemistry. You see guys playing hard every single down, every single game. Doesn't matter who you're playing. I think if you can do those things, our strength and conditioning program, if you do those things well, the wins will come, right? So, I'm measuring this season on how those things are going. They're going well. Sometimes everybody's trying to win. And if you just saw, today's been a wild day in college football.
Yes.
And it doesn't, the heavyweights are going down. It's hard to win football games. I don't care who you're playing. So you got to do those things well. If you do those things well, I think those things are the key to success for us. So that's what I'm monitoring in year one, year two. We're well ahead of schedule. I'm pleased to say that if you would have told me December 1st, we'd be this far along in those categories, those areas, I'd be thrilled. So, we got a ways to go, and I know that Coach Dykes and his team would tell you that, but I like where we're at.
Yeah, you can feel it. It's palpable, right? And environments like this help all those areas, right? They've gotten into, they've tapped into all the talent in DFW, and so there's a great buzz and a great energy, and certainly having crowds like this help.
Oh, yeah, it does. And I think our students, there are kids that come to TCU for the big-time football and the big-time athletics, and that's their biggest reason to come. They're getting their chance to come here tonight. And so I'm really excited. I think we're going to have a huge student section. We expanded the student section because they were just phenomenal last year. We need to give them more space. It's just games are a lot of fun around here. This is my 10th year doing them, and they never get.
So, Jeremiah, we always must be looking forward to the future, but take us back into the process of regime cheer, of hiring Coach Sonny and his staff. What are some things that maybe have surprised you at this point in the year that you didn't necessarily see in the hiring process?
Good question. Well, Sonny is really a people person, and I knew Sonny from his time here earlier in 2017, but he's a great communicator. He will be brutally honest with you and transparent. You ain't gonna sugarcoat it, whether it's going well or if it's not. And I just the bond between he and the coaches has been really impressive. He spent some time making some of those hires. Joe Gillespie's a great one. He wanted to make sure, of all the defensive coordinators that we looked at, the fit was there. So, I think if you walked into our coaches' rooms, you'd be just astonished on how well they vibe and how well they gel together. So that's really surprised me. A lot of guys, there's a lot of people that are involved in the football program, and it doesn't matter who you are. Sometimes they're just not always on the same page. It's hard to do that. But, boy, it really feels like we are. And I'm just surprised that it's going that well that fast.
You talk about building and growth and just reestablishing TCU as a football program that the postseason year over year. But that kind of energy and momentum feeds into the other programs, doesn't it?
it does. This is a football school, and we've got our other programs are really doing well, and I'm so proud of them. But core really, this is Texas. There's not a place in the world bigger than where we're standing right here, and so we know it starts with football, and so it's the catalyst, it's the driver. It's no secret that's why these media deals and conference realignment and football is at the center of it. So it starts with football, and it starts with football here at TCU.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jeremiah Adi, for joining us here on the Frogs Today pregame show live at Amon G. Carter Stadium. We're going to be right back with more right after this break.
Thank you so much.
Welcome back into the Frogs Today pregame show here live at Amon G. Carter Stadium, just outside the Courtside Club. We have another special guest on the show, TCU linebacker David Hawthorne, here with some delicious food, legendary level barbecue from Not Just Q, his barbecue company that is set up right now out in Lot 4. Is that correct?
Lot 4. Yeah, we'll be in Lot 4 every game.
Awesome. So, David, tell me a little bit about your transition from professional football into the barbecue world. What was that like, and what do you love so much about producing quality barbecue?
Oh, man. So I'm from a family of barbecue. My dad was a pit master in my hometown when I grew up. And when I was thinking about life after football, it was a natural fit for me. So I started the barbecue food trucks. We're the official vendor of TCU. All things Horned Frogs, I bleed purple, right? And so to have us out, we do the Loge boxes. We've done a bunch of events for TCU, and this year they wanted us to supply the Lot 4, so we're here for it.
David, I am an amateur barbecue guy, right? I love it. How long do you get out here before they cook? Do you do it on site, or do you transport it? How does that start?
Oh, man, it's an overnight ordeal, man. Like, when you do burgers, it's a 1 minute mistake. When you do barbecue, it's a overnight mistake, right? So yeah, we prep the night before, man. We've cooked all the meats, and when we get here, we're just serving, and that's our thing, man. So barbecue is very unique. It's an art. It's a science. If you do it well, you're good. If you do it bad, nobody likes you.
And there's no in between, is there? It's either really, really
It's
good,
all or nothing.
or it looks like what Lincoln Riley posted on Twitter late last year.
Right. Oh, man, that was terrible. He got drugged for that, rightfully so. Well, I know you as DH. We played together here at TCU. Tell people a little bit about the crossover and skills and attitude from playing sports to running your own business. This is not something that you do lightly. You kind of put your whole into it, and it takes a lot of DHs to make this a success. Tell people about that.
And it's definitely a testament to sports, right? Sports teaches you a lot of things, right? Accountability, right? It teaches you diligence, just a bunch of characteristics that I generated in sports have carried over to running businesses. And to be honest with you, I didn't know a lot about running restaurants, right? I ran it like a football team, right? There's a head coach that deviates all the plan, right? He gives that down to the offensive coordinators and the defensive coordinators, and everybody holds everybody accountable. And that's the same thing I do in business, man. So I didn't know a lot, so I applied what I did know to the restaurant industry, and it works.
You applied what you knew to the restaurant industry, but you knew a lot about football as well. One of the most successful linebackers in TCU history. I want to hear from you. What did you see from the current linebackers in Week 1 against Colorado that stood out to you?
Oh, man, we're linebacker U, right? I mean, when I got here, I was the first linebacker, go off into the NFL and all the things. And then every year there was another linebacker groomed and ready, from, the Tank Carters, the Jason Phillips, and the Darrell Washingtons and Hensons. We literally started a cycle of just this is what we do. And seeing those guys run around and hit and play the game the right way, man, was really exciting for me. Watching the Colorado game last week, it feels different and it sounds different. I always think about linebackers like this. You should turn the tape off and just listen. If your linebackers are making noise, they're playing the game the right way.
How much, in this current defensive structure, how much fun would a guy like you have in this deal where they're bringing guys from all over the place, attack-style defense, and they can just line up and just go rather than a lot of thinking and that sort of thing? How much fun would you have had in this deal?
Yeah, man, I think that's actually the key. It's play fast, right? I think this regime has given the guys the ability to just play fast, right? That was the biggest horn I've ever heard in the background, man. So
You roll with it.
Yeah, that's what we did in Seattle, right? And when I was in Seattle, we came in with Pete Carroll, and Pete Carroll just said, "Hey, look, stop thinking. Y'all be athletes and just play fast." We played one defense every down. We knew exactly what we were going to do, and we did it. And I think that's just a testament to the regime.
All right, David, walk us through what you've brought out here today, and then we're going to sample some of it.
Oh, man, this is like the holy trinity right here, right? A barbecue. I mean, right now I got pork belly burnt ends, right? And we call that pork candy, right? Because it's literally pork candy. If you think about it, it's just bacon cubed up, smoked, and sauced, right?
Nothing better than that.
Yes, please.
There's nothing better than bacon, right? We got chicken thighs. Chicken thighs are better than chicken breasts, right? Chicken breast dries out a little bit, so we don't cook them. Why give somebody something that's dry? Homemade mac and cheese. I got pulled pork. That's Kansas City. A little Cajun potato salad.
There we go.
And we're in Texas, right?
Got it.
So I brought prime brisket.
Gotta have it.
Awesome, guys. Let's maybe dig in and sample some of this. Real
Yeah,
quick.
sure. Absolutely.
Go hands. I ain't shy.
for the
I'm
brisket.
going for the burn in quick. See what that's about.
I'm gonna try this chicken.
You said bacon, you said candy. So
Pork
that's hard to
candy.
take so much.
It's hard to mess that up, man.
Pork candy.
It's hard to mess that up. I'll have that for breakfast tomorrow. Man.
That chicken thigh is definitely not dry. I'll tell you that right now.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
It holds well.
Well, as exciting as this game's going to be, I may be out at the truck in between quarters if that's all right with you.
Hey, we literally can just park it out back. We can all run out there.
I need it to go play. You're on my side.
Awesome. David, thank you so much for stopping by the set here at Frogs Today pregame show. Folks, you can see not just Q out in Lot 4 before every TCU home game this year. And, of course, you don't just have to have it on Saturdays, right, David? Tell us where else you can find not just Q.
Man, we're all across DFW. So we do homeowners associations, we do neighborhoods, we do apartments, we do weddings, we do corporate events. Literally, we can make it happen.
Is there a website that people can go to?
NotJustQ.com.
NotJustQ.com.
Instagram too, social media.
Yep,
Okay.
Instagram, Not Just Q. All things Not Just Q. Because we don't just do barbecue. We do everything.
All right,
Excellent. David, thank you so much for joining us here. This
man.
is the Frogs Today pregame show live from Amy G. Carter Stadium, and we will be right back after this break.
Here we go.
Max Melendez.
We are back live here on the Frogs Today pregame show at Amon G. Stadium, just outside the Court Club. Going to give you a couple little more score updates before we get to our next guest. Houston and Texas Tech look like they are headed to overtime, tied at 20 points apiece. Kansas and West Virginia are at halftime, and the Mountaineers lead the Jayhawks 28-21. That Kansas offense is something to keep an eye on this year. Kent State and Oklahoma are knotted at 0 at the end of the first quarter, and Oklahoma State and Arizona State have just kicked off. Again, earlier today, Alabama beat Texas 20-19 in Austin. A very close game. People didn't expect that, and Kansas State laid the hammer down on Missouri by a score of 40-12. But we have now with us on set here on the Frogs Today pregame show another head coach of a TCU program, David Roditi, men's tennis head coach. Thank you for joining us here today.
Thank you, Jamie. It's great to be here.
All right, so you guys are coming off of an indoor national championship last year, a long postseason run, an outdoor. What's in store for TCU men's tennis as we get into the new season now?
Well, first, get our home opener win right here.
There you go.
We don't do much for that one, but certainly looking forward to it. And yeah, just get better. We have a couple new guys on the squad. We're excited about the new team. Every year is a little different, but nothing different. Just get better, do a bunch of individual tournaments in the fall, and hopefully get back to the indoors and give it another run and see what we can do this year.
Coach, how much do you use events like this in recruiting? You know, to have a big-time football program, a successful program, and also on game day events. How much do you use that in your own recruiting for your program?
Yeah, absolutely. This is very exciting. It's unbelievable energy. We have some visitors right now on campus, some of our top ones. So, yeah, this is very exciting. There's not an American kid tennis player coming up that doesn't look for this, and one of the reasons why we've been successful is because of what Coach P set up here in the last 20 years, and now it's Coach Dykes. So we can get all the help we can get, and we're looking forward to it.
Yeah, now all we need to do is show them a win today, right, to help you out.
Well, we just let them walk around. That's all we do. Just walk around, open your eyes, and we'll talk on Monday.
This is just a beautiful campus. There's no doubt about it.
It is.
Coach, you played here, and now you're coaching here. Tell us about the pride you feel about being a TCU alum, now coaching here, and then also, second part, having a guy like Cam Norrie and other alumni who are going on to do big things as professionals.
Yeah, this is definitely an exciting time with men's tennis. I got my partner, Devin Bowen, who also played here with myself, another alum. He coaches with me, so it's two of us. And I always say when things are going well, it's great because your buddies, they think you're cool. But when things don't go well, you hear from your buddies, and you know how you talk to your buddies. So it's a little different being an alumni and carrying that TCU pride and that flag and keeping it a family. So when things are going well, it's awesome. It's just you get a little more direct, personal stuff when things don't go well. But luckily, a guy like Cameron Norrie, he's carrying out the TCU flag internationally, making the semifinals of Wimbledon with a TCU coach, Facundo Lugones. There's not a better promoter of TCU out there on ESPN all the time, proudly wearing his TCU gear. It's been great. I told our boss here, Donati, that if he's not happy with men's tennis right now, he never will. It doesn't get any better than this right now. So other than obviously the big NCAA title, that would be something that would be nice to get at some point.
You are chasing that title, and as you mentioned, you've got some new faces here that are going to help contribute right away. Sebastian Gorsny is one of them. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about him. He made his debut at the U.S. Open, and he actually won the junior doubles event at Wimbledon. What can TCU fans expect?
Yeah, Sebastian is is a Texas kid. His family lives in Texas now. He was at the Chris Everett Academy in Florida. He's a Wimbledon doubles champion, so that's pretty good. Pedigree to begin with. Big guy, big athletic guy. We're counting on him on day one. We have another player from England who is on paper maybe one of the best players already in college on day one. So we're just counting on our compliance office to get the job done, and then you'll be watching him play pretty soon, hopefully.
Awesome. Coach, thank you so
I
much
have one
for
more
taking
question.
time.
Sorry to
Go for
interrupt.
it.
Who you got?
Absolutely.
U.S. Open final. Who you got?
U.S. Open final. Oh man, yeah. I can tell you, women. We already know the result of that. Yeah, how do you not cheer for Alcaraz? I mean, how do you not? It's impossible. I don't care where you're from.
He's 19.
Sport is 19. I can't believe he's 19. He would be a freshman or a sophomore in college.
Unbelievable.
The guy's the man. I think we'll be talking about Alcaraz for the next 20 years. My 8-year-old boy right here, Max and Max, they talk about Alcaraz.
Let's love it.
It's going to be exciting tomorrow. It'd be great to see. And they had a Spanish guy win the junior program, coached by another TCU Horn Frog, Esteban Carrillo. He's coaching the Wimbledon in the U.S. Open Junior Champion. So Frogs are out there. They're getting the job done. I think we're like 5th and 6th best TCU coaches out there right now. Devin and I, we're getting schooled by all these TCU guys, but it's exciting. It's an exciting time, and just looking forward to this. What's going on behind us?
Love it. Thank you, Coach.
Thank you so much, Coach, for joining us here on the Frogs Today pregame show. That's going to do it for us here at the Frogs Today pregame show. You can find us right back here at the Courtside Club following TCU's game against Carleton State tonight. The post-game show with Coach David Bowden and Marshall Newhouse. And don't forget, folks, if you subscribe right now on frogstoday.com, you will be entered for an opportunity to win a signed Desmond Bain basketball. That's a pretty good deal.
D-Bain, I like it.
D-Bain,
Put that one on
representing
the mantle.
TCU, another professional Horned Frog out there in the world. doing
We
great
brag
things.
about him all the time. Keep it going. Keep it going, Dads.
All right, for Coach Roditi, for Marshall Newhouse, and Coach David Bowden, I am Jamie Plunkett. This has been the Frogs Today pregame show. Go Frogs.
Go Frogs.
Go Frogs.